Hey folks, how you doing? It's Jason Noble from Witching Hour Sport Fishing here. Uh, we're up here on Lake Ontario in Canada. It's snowing outside. It's cold. That fishing season is very close. So today, as a promotional staff member for Trinidad Tackle, I wanted to just share some tips and tricks from us. Particularly on one particular product that has been phenomenal for us. Um, this is the Trinidad Tackle Classic Anchovy Head. Phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. This has put so many large derby-winning fish in our boat. It's incredible. The main advantage to this that we find is this spine, this metal spine, and if anybody's used to running anchovy, it's essentially just this head. So the main advantage to this spine is you can bend it, and you can get that perfect roll every single time. I'll start out by showing you this would be the finished product of how I rig the Trinidad Tackle Classic Anchovy Head. I just want to point out that sort of hockey shape bend, and I'll show you as I sort of progress here how this unfolds. This is the finished product, as I say. I've got a treble in the center of the anchovy with a trailing octopus. So number one, green for us has been our go-to color on Lake Ontario. So we predominantly use this particular one. Trinidad Tackle has 11 different colors of these heads. So what we do is obviously we have the head. In terms of the products that we use Seagar STX salmon fluorocarbon. The one nice thing about this particular fluorocarbon is, unlike the blue label, you get 100 yards. That's one huge advantage. 100 yards, really good bang for your buck. Seagar, phenomenal fluorocarbon. We like the 30 pound. We like the 30 pound fluorocarbon in the spring and summer. In August, once the salmon start staging, we will jump to 40 pound just because the salmon are starting to develop, those aggressive teeth, and we feel that jumping to 40 pound just gives us a little more abrasion resistance. So the trebles that I like to use are 2X. They're Gamakatsu. These are size 4, so they're relatively small. That's just what I have liked and felt comfortable with. And the trailing octopus I use is a Gamakatsu size 1/0. So just a little history of Lake Ontario up here in Canada. Our primary fish, sort of our tuna of Lake Ontario, is the Chinook salmon. So the Chinook salmon is our apex predator on Lake Ontario. It's just, for those of you that don't fish Chinook salmon, these are just hunting and feeding machines. Nothing compares to the fight of a Chinook salmon. They were introduced into Lake Ontario in the 80s as a sport fishery to combat the alewife or our bait fish population. Lake Ontario has coho. They've introduced Atlantic salmon. We have steelhead, brown trout, lake trout, and anchovy works on them all. It's a phenomenal presentation. Now, in terms of the anchovies that we use, we get these anchovies from British Columbia. We prefer the medium size or the green label. These are 5" and 1/4 in length. And in terms of brining is one of those things that everybody seems to have their own formula, concoction, etc. We keep it simple. We go through a lot of anchovy. We're promotional staff members for ProCure. ProCure has some phenomenal products. The main thing, regardless of what you use, you want to get the shine. And I don't know if you can see how these anchovies are shining. We keep it extremely simple. All we do is we take our anchovy and we get a large Ziploc bag, coarse kosher salt, and borax. Very simple. Take the package out of the freezer the day before or 2 days before, thaw them, throw them in that Ziploc bag. Doesn't need to be complicated. Pour some borax on top. Pour some of that coarse kosher salt. They will firm up, and the borax will brighten it. It'll give you that shine. Very simple, extremely simple, cost effective. As I say, there's many different products on the market. There's bottles in various colors. Potski, Mike's, all you have to do is just dump those in. Regardless of the product you use, you want your anchovy to be just a little bit firm, or some people like it a little firmer, and have that shine. So the longer you keep it in that product, whatever it may be, it will firm up over time, and just keep it in the refrigerator. One thing I like is to essentially, once again, we keep everything simple. All this is just a piece of styrofoam. And what we do is we'll have, 10 of these rigged and ready. And I'm going to show you how I like to rig them. So in other words, if you're on the boat and you notice sort of a nick and whatnot, instead of spending that time on the boat to tie another one, there's a massive advantage to being organized and having them rigged and ready. So all you have to do is take your one that needs to be retied. I have a little Rubbermaid container. They go right in there, and those are ones to tie down the road or on a windy day at the dock. So they're all rigged and ready, and you can just grab one and go. So the way I like to tie these is, so I take a piece of 30-pound fluorocarbon, keep it extremely simple. I just, this one's already cut to length. For us, the length that's always been, sort of bulletproof for us, whether it's anchovy or herring, has always been just, one complete arm length. And this right here is about 5 feet. And so the first thing I do is I take the Octopus, and I don't know if you can see this. I hope you can. I put the line through the eyelet, and I bring it back just a little bit, right about there. It doesn't need to be scientific. And all I do is now I'm going to wrap this. I'm going to wrap this 10 times. So 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I pinch it so that it doesn't get loose. Grab this piece, and I'm going to want to take the end of this fluorocarbon and pass it back through, hard to see here, pass it back through the eyelet. So it's through the eyelet, and all I'm going to do is cinch this tight. So right there, it's somewhat tight. I wet it. I put my finger right in there. I just, get so used to doing that. And wrap it around my hand a couple times. It's already wet, and give it a quick pull. Now the tag length, I like it about 1/4 inch. So I just cut that. And that's what that looks like. So then from there, I take the treble, and it's just the same thing. I just run it right through the eyelet once again, and bring it down to right about there. Now between here and the treble, I like just over a half an inch. And I just clasp it here. And once again, wrap. What I do here is I wrap it about 7 times. And when you wrap it here, I am cognizant that I'm not wrapping over top of another wrap. So I'm just taking my time, wrapping it 7 times, making sure you don't, nick the line on the actual, treble point itself. Grab the end again, and just right through that eyelet. And once again, you just cinch it down. Very simple. Right there. And what I do is I wet it just with my tongue. Put my finger right into that treble again, so I've got a leverage point, and just pull it. And then I go back here again to the octopus and just pull the whole thing. So that's ready. And on the anchovy head, it has a little red, clip, I guess. So used to saying toothpick, but that's what holds the anchovy. Now this is a little tricky part, I think, for most people. So right on the side here, right where my thumb is, there's that little space there. So you want to get your fluorocarbon through that hole. And it's one of those things you have to be up close to see it. So you put it through that hole. Hope you can see that there. So that went through that hole right there. And then right next to it is a horizontal little gap. And the line has to go down through that. And so there it goes. It goes through that, and you pull that. And then the next step is to take the end, and right on the top of the anchovy head, there's a hole. So what you do is from the bottom, right through the center of the anchovy head, you take your end of the fluorocarbon, and you put it through the anchovy and up through that hole. And then you pull that, and now it's through, and you pull it right down to the hooks, and there's the red peg. So if you were going to store these, you would put the red peg in. I'm going to show you how I actually rig the anchovy right now. One thing I do is I toothpick that first area right there. I put a toothpick in there, and that just provides a tension point for the line. So you just put it in there and wiggle that toothpick and break it. Okay, so there we are there. We're all rigged and ready for the anchovy. So you take one of these nice shiny pieces of anchovy, and this is really where this product shines. So what you do is, this is the gill plate of the anchovy right here. And what you do is on the back side, you put this spine through the gill plate, and you feed that spine right through the center of the anchovy. And you take your time, and you don't want it to poke out. And if you do, just slide it back a little bit and try it again. And so what you do is you feed it right through the center, right until the tail, and you can feel it right until the tail, and now it's in the center of the bait head. And then you take your red peg, and just in that little slot there, you peg it. And so here's what we have right now. Those are the hooks. And so what I do is I take this treble and I put it right in the center of the anchovy, right in the spine. And so I feed it up here. And that's where I inserted it, right there. And there's a little bit of a bow in the fluorocarbon here. Just give it a slight little pull. Take that little bow out. That's why the toothpick's there, so it won't, slide aggressively. And that's the big advantage to these. And I'll talk about that in a second. So that's in the spine perfectly. And here's your trailing octopus. Now I love these octopus on the back because it's, in my opinion, it's very stealth. It's right at the back of the tail. It's perfect. And so here's where this bait head really shines. Okay, so this is pre-bend, and now all you do is you take sort of your fingers like this, and you just gently give it a hockey stick. Okay, give it a little hockey stick bend. Just gently. And for us, that would be a perfect bend. Just a really beautiful spin on that on this anchovy. And so that right there is your finished product of the anchovy. Now, what we do is on the end of your 5-foot lead, we put a bead chain swivel. You can get these at your local tackle store. They're actually fairly expensive. 4 comes in a pack up our way. And we like these because there's so much rotation to this. We find that this really helps the line, the action. So for this particular, on the very end of the fluorocarbon, we just put it through the eyelet of the bead chain, and this is a very simple knot. I use a improved clinch knot, and for me, I just go around about 6 times. And right here, there's a little gap, and so what I do is I put it through that little gap in the fluorocarbon. And the improved clinch knot is you're putting it back through that loop again. And so I put it back through that loop. And then tight. Pull it tight. And then once again, trim the tag end here. About a 1/4 inch is what I like. And there you go. You've got a perfectly rigged anchovy in the Trinidad Tackle classic anchovy head. So what do we do with this? There's a lot of different things. You can a lot of different ways you can run this. Up our way, we use downriggers, we use dipsy divers, we use dipsy divers in braid and wire, we use copper, we use lead core. But in terms of what we mostly do with this is we will clip this onto a flasher or a dodger. So Trinidad Tackle has one of these. This is their dodger. We really like it. It's in the green. It matches the bait head. The advantage of this particular one is you can bend it. You can adjust the bend of this, which is really nice. One thing we do is on all our meat rigs is, and we feel this is important, we use a coast lock. And so on this particular Dodger, we'll slide that in, and the bead chain just goes into this coast lock just right there, and then what you'll end up having is that attached to that. And the reason we like these coast locks is it eliminates sort of extra swivels, and in our opinion, the less terminal tackle, the better. So there's lots of flashers on the market now, and we've got them all. You know, the boat's full, the garage is full. It's endless, and the colors and everything. So you've got, you know, this phenomenal product. You've got, you know, something of this sort. This is a Spin Doctor, a whole bunch of different colors. This style is one of our personal favorites. It's in a you know, a fish shape. You know, Oki Gibbs makes them. We customize all our tapes. We just, you know, the longer you do this, you get very specific on what you like. You know, the nice thing about these is, you know, it already has a ball bearing swivel right here, and it has the clasp. So on the clasp, all you do is you just clasp on right onto the bead chain swivel. Another product would be like, you know, your traditional paddle. We call this a paddle. Another flasher type. They all have unique rotations. So on any given day, you know, one of these rotations will dominate, and of course the color combinations are endless. So that sort of concludes the demonstration on how we rig and sort of prepare these Trinidad Tackle classic anchovy heads. Phenomenal up here on Lake Ontario. Can't stress this green, the chartreuse. They have so many different colors. It's endless. They've got 11 different ones, but I can tell you, anchovy, it adds fish to the boat, and this is a phenomenal rigging method that outrivals the traditional non-spine version. So if you haven't tried this, give it a whirl. It's fantastic. So, you know, tight lines, everyone. You know, stay safe, and talk to you later.